sometimes introduction.
This is Ichariba Choodee, an Okinawan Voices and Stories podcast. Episode 5, Mensōre 𝔼𝕬𝕐. Haisai gusuyo, hajimite yasai, wane 𝔼𝕬𝕐𝕬𝕐. Hello everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Emma. Welcome to Ichariba Choodee, a podcast featuring Okinawan voices and stories. In this podcast, we aim to create an open and safe learning and growing space where we will explore alongside guest speakers what it means to be Shimanchu. Our intention and prayer for this project is to cultivate our own knowledge about our histories, to celebrate the amazingly diverse and resilient culture of our people, to inspire other Shimanchu of all generations and geographic locations to be curious about their histories, and to preserve those precious pieces of our identity for future generations. And, of course, to have fun along the way. We'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll stumble around and just be human. And we hope you'll come along and join us for this evolving journey together. We're looking forward to it. 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕐𝕼.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Ichariba Choodee podcast. 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕐𝕼. My name is Erica, and today I'll be your co-host alongside Mariko.
Hi, Guy.
And Tori.
Hi, Sai.
And this month we have a very special announcement. We'd like to give a warm welcome to a new addition to the co-host team, Emma Anderson. Yay! Emma has been a key editor on the podcast, and today we're excited for all of you to get to know her as we do a casual yuntaku with the Ichariba Choodee team. Mensōre, Emma.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and representing the podcast. Thank you all for having me on the show today.
Thank you, Emma. So Emma joined the Ichariba Choodee team back in July 2021, jumping in to help edit episode 3, part 1 and 2 on Hajichi, and has become a dedicated editor since. We're absolutely delighted to have her amazing energy and talents moving this collaborative effort forward. It's hard to believe, but we're about halfway through our first season together. Karii! And we've had such positive feedback and overwhelming support from the Shimanchu community and allies. But before we dive into the main conversation, I'm curious to hear from the other co-hosts what everybody's been excited about as we move forward into this next half of the season.
I'm just very excited to see this podcast grow through multiple partnerships. We just had a very successful partnership with Tadaima and a partnership with WOOS on an international scale. The possibilities this really opens up for even more collaborations with different JA organizations and groups overseas as well, makes me very excited for what's to come.
I think moving forward, I'm really excited to hear more from other people and to expand on the conversations that we have already had. And also to, expand it to outside of the main Okinawa Honto. I think we do have a few or are in the talks of making episodes in the future that involve outer islands and countries outside of both Okinawa, Japan, and the US. And I'm really excited for those conversations because I think they're a little bit underrepresented in the Shimanchu community. So I'm excited to give them a place to talk about themselves.
Both Emma and Tori have given such good answers.
Right?
It has been just a general excitement with all the collaborations, I guess, because when we first started back, when did we even start? Like April or something? Or even earlier than that. I think my first going into it, I was very nervous in general just to be on a podcast talking, which I never really do or used to do before, and just talking about my opinion. So I think just this journey so far has been amazing collectively and personally as a personal growth. And I think it's been so cool to see the community come together and just again, making more connections and talking about these issues that we've been having on like a smaller scale, but to also see it in the larger community has been really cool. So I'm just really excited to see it grow that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is interesting how listening to this podcast, you learn a lot about yourself and our own identities, even when, you know, it's not necessarily Yuntaku. Even just listening to Woos or about people's Hajichi journeys is really affirming, you know, our own interests in the culture.
Yeah, really wanting to echo all of what you just said. I think for me, just like staying curious in the excitement and the evolution and like the organic way that things are unfolding. I think it all sort of started off as this like lofty idea of like, well, let's start a podcast. And then it's kind of been stepping stones along the way and just trusting the journey. So every step that we take, the like stone appears. And then, you know, like, so it's been very organic in the way that it's unfolded. Which has really been part of, for me, a spiritual journey. And I think about the spiritual lens a lot. And I think that's the episode that I probably am like most excited about, is to hear the different ways spirituality shows up in other Shimanchu people's lives. You know, learning about like the Brazilian community and how they have a very rich community there around Kaminchu, and not really knowing a whole lot of that. I'm personally very excited to learn more because I don't know anything. Yeah, so that's where I'm excited. But yeah, I think we have a lot to look forward to.
The purpose of this episode is to get to know Emma a little better and hear from her what it means to be Shimanchu. We'll start off with an introduction. Emma, would you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. Haitai Gusio, wane emayaibin, itashiku unige sabida. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma. I'm an audio editor on Ichariba Choodee, so I'm usually behind the scenes. So it's very exciting for me to be here and to be speaking in front of the mic for the first time.
Yay, we're so excited.
I know, we've been talking about this episode for like months already, and to actually be recording it is exciting.
So to give a bit of a background, I am gosei, 5th generation Okinawan and Swedish American. Yeah, Tori, you're gosei as well, right? Awesome.
I feel like people in our generation, in our age group, are pretty rare.
Yeah.
So it's nice to meet another gosei.
It's interesting. Both sides of my family actually immigrated to the United States close to around the same time. So I'm 5th generation on both sides of the family.
Wow.
On my Okinawan side, they immigrated in the very early 1900s from Nakagusuku to Hawaii, where they worked on the sugar plantations in Oahu and on the Big Island. For my Swedish side, actually, they immigrated in the late 1800s from Gothenburg to the Midwest. And they settled on Lake Erie and were farmers over there on the coast. So, you know, I've always been very, very conscious and very grateful for these two seemingly separate ancestral paths that ultimately came together. You know, at the end of the day, my own life has been shaped by these two opposing immigration stories. I was considering doing an introduction in Swedish, but I wanted to keep in with the Okinawan culture.
I'd love to hear it.
I would also love to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do them back to back then. So for Okinawan, haitai gusio, wane emayaibin, itashiku unige sabida. And in Swedish it would be, hej hej, jag heter Emma, trevligt att träffas. Förlåt, jag talar inte bra svenska. I do not speak very good Swedish, but I try.
That's awesome.
That was
sounded
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah, nicely done.
As for my upbringing, I was born and raised on Tongaland, also known as Los Angeles. So I grew up in a city that had a very strong, and continues to have a very strong, Uchinanchu community. I visited the Okinawa Association building almost every weekend to take koto lessons. Every summer we'd celebrate Obon and dance Asadoya Yunta at the local Buddhist church. And even just, you know, as a family, We'd retain a couple traditions. My great-grandmother, who's still alive, she's 103 currently, so
wow.
Shout out
Oh
to
my gosh.
Shout out to Grandma Shimabukuro. And we would, of course, like, she has her beautiful butsudan. For children's birthday parties, we do the Tanka Yue celebration. And my personal favorite, we all fry our own andagi donuts at home.
Yes, I love that.
So I just feel very lucky to have grown up so close to my Okinawan heritage. I think this can almost serve as a segue into our next topic, but I don't think I realized exactly how fortunate I was to have that strong connection with my culture until I started working with Tori and helped her admin the Shimanchu Discord server, because it was through that virtual space that we've met so many Shimanchu from all walks of life, many of whom are just starting to explore their heritage, and learning new traditions alongside them is very heartwarming to see this resurgence of interest in our culture, especially among the younger generation.
Wow. Yeah. What a gift to be able to have that legacy, even like, as gosei, like having that preserved through, and that is such a strong, like potent part of your life. And that you're channeling that into like amazing, like community projects. And so speaking of projects, would you be willing to share a little bit around the inspiration behind some of those projects that you're involved in, and like, how does one find out about them or get involved?
I'd say my biggest project so far has been supporting Tori and helping grow this Discord server. It grew, like this podcast, very organically. Tori just hit me up on Instagram and was like, hey, you want to help me out?
Nice.
trying to build this out a little bigger. What's funny is I think the server started, correct me, Tori, as like a group chat for a couple of Uchinanchu friends.
Another Instagram group.
Yeah, and it's just Instagram group chat didn't have enough space for more people.
It didn't. It had, I think you can limit it, or the amount of people that can be in it is like 20, 25. So
wow.
I thought it was very limiting, just because I know that there's a lot of people out there who want to connect. And I mean, that group was created, so.
Yeah, so Tori went ahead and started a Discord server called the Shimanchu Discord server, which, for those who aren't familiar, is an online space for Shimanchu, Ainu, and allies to meet and explore our culture and our identities together. We currently have over 180 members. We have forums. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Realizing how much numbers. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, it started with a group of maybe like 8 people in Tori's chat, and now has grown to, however many times the size we have now. And we have everything from forums for Hajichi tattoos to Shimanchu languages to music to dance. We also have private spaces to discuss identity and reconnecting. It's always been a very supportive group, and I think what shocked me the most are just the creative endeavors that come out of this group. For example, a lot of the big projects we see, like the Choral Uchinaguchi language learning, the Shimanchu no Kui magazine, even this podcast in a way, or even the Pen Pal program that Erica started, can all sort of trace their origin back to that server one way or another, because the friendships that have been made on that server end up turning into these super powerful partnerships that create creative projects. And I'm just in awe watching this all unfold. So I think my role and Tori's role has just been to help facilitate that as much as we can, and really encourage the community to work together and create something outside of the virtual space.
Yeah. I love that. I just also want to say how much I appreciate the both of you in growing this Discord community, because it's been, I know me and Mariko kind of started at the same time in terms of exploring our identity, but I really feel like so supported in that group, and I feel like it's like one of the only reasons why I've kind of felt comfortable enough to be able to participate in like the podcast or create Manchu pen pals and stuff. So just continuing to shout out high praises to the both of you. And yeah, I'm still so impressed that we have 180 members. That's so crazy to me in such a good way.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's just one of those places where you feel so compelled to dive even deeper into our culture, because so many people on that server are so excited about Okinawa and about Okinawan identity, Okinawan politics, history, and to be surrounded by that sort of energy 24/7, because it's available, right at your fingertips, is a very powerful thing. And I remember June was joking like, oh, we're the online Kenjinkai.
We are basically, which is awesome.
You're not wrong. I think what I love is like, it's a time capsule too. It's sort of similar to the podcast in the way that it's like, you can access it at any point. And I remember kind of digging back through some of the archives too, like being a new person, earlier this year, and just being like, whoa, there's like a ton of resources that are available. Like I remember even seeing the, like how to find your ancestry or like trace it back through different villages. And then, even spiritual stuff, because that's really how I ended up wanting to learn more about my Okinawan heritage. And then there's like a special channel that's dedicated to like spirituality. And like, so it's amazing because it's a place that's like, one, it's safe and it's welcoming. And like the second piece is like the fact that you can find these individual areas that you're really interested in and find community through that. And I think that's one of the most amazing and successful pieces about this project that you've put together, is that like, it's so interest-based and everybody can lean in, or anybody can lean in like into whatever it is where they're at. And feel like they're held and supported. I've never seen that in an online community before. I think I mentioned this like in one of the other calls, but it's like the way that the internet can be a very stark and or polarizing and or intense space. But you've done such a great job of cultivating community. So thank you both so much for creating that space.
I was going to add, I think if it weren't for the pandemic, as sort of a silver lining, I don't know if the Discord would have been there. For me, I've always had a physical space, like I said, to go to, whether it was the Okinawa Association or we'd have like Okinawa bazaars and things, or Bonodori was an easy way to access Okinawan culture in the physical world. And so I think there was this need and want to connect on a deeper level that we couldn't being stuck at home. And so that Discord really offered that.
Yeah, definitely.
The Instagram group before the Discord was made, I believe it was Bean and Machi. Their IG is WAAGWAA. They made the Instagram group because it was COVID, and it was the perfect time really to like create this space, this online space. And I will shout out to Nikkei Pals, my friend's other group, because they really also were the inspiration for like the way our Shimanchu Discord is set up, to like create a safe space and to like make it a place that people can talk about their identity and culture in a way that was comfortable for them.
I have no idea how many Shimanchu there are in Vermont, but I have not met another one, and I've been here for a very long time. It's just like me, my mom, and my brother, who's now in Philadelphia. So I just want to say, like, you did exactly what you needed to do. And I think there are a lot of people that are finding out about their roots and finding your Discord channel and feeling connected and becoming like proud and then like part of the web that is woven. And I love that so much.
For those who want to join the Discord server, we will definitely include a link to the server in the show notes.
Yeah, come join us.
Come join us. And also, if you have a Kenjinkai near you, please join them as well, because like Emma mentioned, for me as well, with the Hawaii United Okinawa Association, as well as my Ginoza Sonjinkai, they were definitely a huge part of why I'm still connected with my family back in Okinawa, or in Ginoza specifically, as well as more diaspora Okinawan culture. And I think they're also a reason the Discord was made, because they do a lot for the community, which is sometimes difficult because, just because they're not in all states, and they're sometimes far if you are in a specific state. So, sorry, go ahead, Mariko. I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt
no,
you.
it's good. I think we're both on the same wavelength. But I'm curious, Emma, like, do you have aspects of the Ryukyuan culture or identity that you feel most proud of or that you resonate most with?
Yeah, I'd say I'm most proud of just our resilience. I think Uchinanchus and Shimanchu are just so resilient in every part of life, whether it's through their longevity or work ethic, their resilience through Japanese incarceration, their resilience in being protective of our homeland. You know, I think back to those photos of the anti-base protest where you have the oba-chans and oji-chans just fighting their way through the police and refusing to back down, even up into their old age. Like, personally, when I see younger activists like Kaya Yonamine, who's barely out of high school, out there fighting for Hanoko Bay, or even like Sho Yamagushiku comes to mind, I feel his poetry is activism. You know, he speaks very harsh truths and uses raw emotion to bring out, you know, or to bring together the Uchinanchu community to really challenge our relationships with imperialism and land rights and ownership of our own identities. I think when I see that, I see the true Okinawan spirit shining through these individuals, and I hope it's just that this spirit, this resilience continues to carry on with, you know, the further generations, and that I myself can channel this as well in my own work.
So beautiful. I love the cycles of it feeding each other, like inspiring each other and giving back to the community, and that image that you just painted of like how fiercely we are resilient, how like fiercely we love and committed, and how part of our identity is really connected to the way that we live.
And I think something that surfaced through the Discord as well is just how protective we have been and are trying to be about, you know, keeping our culture for ourselves and taking it back. You know, when you think about how Sherry's offering free language learning classes to any Shimanchu, and that's something that, you know, takes a lot of work. I give her so much credit, but again, like, it's all about how can we do our best to keep our culture alive and really push through when everyone else is telling us to be silent.
Yeah, totally. This is kind of going a little off tangent, but I am pretty new to like being part of like this Shimanchu diaspora and being online and stuff. So I haven't really seen how I guess the Shimanchu community in general has evolved over the years, or in terms of like taking back our culture for it is. But it feels like for me, being maybe because I'm like new and seeing everyone kind of becoming more interested in our identity, do you think there's been like a renaissance in a sense of like trying to bring back our culture and community? Because that's how I feel. Like I feel like there's like these seeds coming up and we're all very passionate and we're all trying to find our voices for it, but I don't know if that's a new thing because I'm also new to this, or if that's like a pretty recent development. I don't know if like Emma or Tori can talk to this more.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think what's funny is talking to like my parents' generation, like my mom and my auntie, they're always like, "You're such a Buddha head," or like they're so kind of in awe of just all of the, you know, culture that I'm trying to learn and trying to engage with. I don't think, you know, our spirit, you know, has differed between the generations, but I think that like pure interest, when you're more detached, I think when you're like third, fourth, fifth generation, there is this want to reconnect because you're not as close to it anymore. I feel like personally that's how I have viewed my identity search and trying to get closer to Okinawa when I have not traveled there myself, when I haven't had family travel there for quite a while. I don't know if I think I might have very distant relatives back on the islands, but for me, it's, you know, a lot of this has been developing, and a lot of my interest has been developing because I want to reconnect with something that I feel I've been a little detached to.
Wow. Did I hear you say that you've never been to Okinawa? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I've never been.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I'm the same.
Really? Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I mean, my plan was to probably go this past year, but that didn't quite happen because I wanted to go for Taikai, obviously. So we'll see, because that was when my grandpa actually, the first time he visited Okinawa was as part of Taikai as well. So
Wow.
I like this idea of carrying on that tradition of visiting the motherland through this super, loving cultural event.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. And I think as somebody that like didn't have that exposure like growing up, like hearing that you were so immersed in it yet you've never been, and like how explosive that's going to be when you actually get there. Like I just can't wait to see that journey unfold.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about, my two different identities being Swedish and Okinawan. I did make an effort during college to study in Sweden and live in Sweden, and I think a lot of that was because that was the one side I didn't have much of an access to. My slowness to visit Okinawa has not been because I wouldn't want to go. It's just because I have had such a fruitful access to Okinawan culture already, and I feel like the support and the learning that I'm getting being in Los Angeles is very, exceptional in terms of being so close to my culture, but have not yet traveled there.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, we're all gonna go to
I'm so excited.
Cheers for real. A lot of karaoke.
Yeah, a lot of karaoke and maybe some tattoos for the Shimanchu online.
Ooh.
Drinking involved.
I'm down.
I love it.
I'm so
We're gonna
excited
have
for the
fun.
both of you.
What was it like? I mean, can I hear a little bit about your guys' experience? Because Mariko, were you grew up there, and then Tori, you visited a little later in your young adult life.
Yeah, so I lived in Okinawa for 3 years growing up. It was like maybe 94, 95, 96-ish. And I did my primary 1 through 3 in Kitanaka Shogakko, which was obviously an immersive experience, and it was kind of a turbulent time. But I really loved being in Okinawa. There was just such a feel or an energetic vibe about being on the land, and with my aunties and uncles and my cousins. I had so many cousins, and that's very different than my American side. I have an aunt who doesn't have any children, so it's just my brother and myself. And then in Okinawa, it's like, 5 brothers and sisters, like 5 aunties, uncles, and they all have kids. So it was like a completely different vibe. So I remember like going to like, the shimis and like just like throwing out your your like the sheets, I forget what they're called, but like the kind of plasticky sheets that we would put down, the bloom tarps, we would put them down and we would all just like pile onto them. And yeah, it was just like such a vibe. Yeah, and I really loved that experience. And it was beautiful in heart. I think like the feeling of Okinawa is like, I think to go back to what you were talking about, Emma, about resiliency, I think it's just really captured in every moment. It's like beautiful and sad, and that's what makes that moment so precious. And I've been back a couple of times, and each time is just like adds to the over the big picture of everything. And but 2022, I'm looking forward to that happening.
Yes.
Yeah, make it happen. And I'll turn it over to you, Tori, if you want to talk about your Okinawan experience.
Thank you. That was really lovely. Especially I feel like too, like being that age is for me like a different experience than like when I went as well, and also the time period that you went. So thank you for sharing that, Rico. I went for the first time in 2014, just as a family thing to meet our relatives, and then again in 2018, which I went as a kenchusei for the Ginoza Sonjinkai. For me, it's kind of like, oh, it's a trip to Okinawa, it's free. I'll go. So I took the opportunity to go, and it was good because I got to learn more about the place that my family is from. Even though I grew up with some knowledge of my family, it became really tangible when I went to Okinawa. Just because like my grandpa, I guess growing up, he would be like, "We're Uchinanchu, we're not Japanese." I don't know if any of your families are like that, but
they 100% are. A lot of Uchinanchu pride. But
so
it's funny because you are Japanese.
I am also Japanese.
Sorry. just forget that side of yourself, Tori.
Just erase that for a split second.
Oh no.
Yeah, my grandpa married a woman from Tokyo, so and then my other side is also Japanese, but but he's we're Uchinanchu, we're not Japanese. So I always grew up with that. So like Okinawa was always something in my periphery, but I didn't really focus on it too much until I went to Ginoza. But basically on the Kenshu program, just to make this really short, you do language classes. They let us participate in ASA. We did sanchin classes. We did a little bit of uchinaguchi classes. They took us around. We were part of WUS, and then a few other things, but different towns do it differently. For us, we got to stay with our families generally. So for me, I stayed with my great grandpa's. Basically, when my grandpa was sent to Okinawa when he was 3, they had adopted him, quote unquote. So that family there, the mother or the father, their children, my uncle was like 93, 94 at the time. And then his wife, he was the Duguchi, and then his wife was my auntie, I guess, or his wife. Sorry, this is very confusing. But they took me in.
You're good. You're good.
Sorry. But yeah, no, they took me in. So on the weekends, we would stay with them. And then on the weekdays, we would be in a Kenshu center, which was up in the mountain far away from everything. But it was really fun because I got to bond with the other Kenshu that were with me in Ginoza. But yeah, it was like, it made everything so tangible. Like for me, Ginoza was just like a place that I knew about, that I knew my family was from, but it didn't really mean that much to me, sad to say. But going there, being part of the community, getting to participate in Honensai, participating in ASA, getting to know people who knew my family or relatives who I didn't know, but they were like, "Yeah, you're Toguchi, we're Toguchi too." So it was very, very, I think, heartwarming for me. Yeah, like I made a lot of friends. I got to get to know my family a lot better, and then it also changed my life. I was like, I was planning to go back to New York, and I ended up wanting to go back to Okinawa. And even now, it's been like 3 years, and I'm still like. I really miss Okinawa. But yeah, we stayed generally with like the Kikakuka. So they made us really feel like we were part of the community, like we had always been there before. Just made sure that we were comfortable and that we were enjoying ourselves. So yeah, that was really long.
Oh, that was great. I really related to what you said about finding value in that tangibility. I think that is, for me, the one piece that is missing from, having this full circle Okinawan identity. When I think about traveling to Okinawa, like, I just want to, go to the beaches. I want to see the star sand. I want to see the shisa on the roofs. Like, I have so many things I feel like are on my bucket list. Even, thanks to the immigration database from Hawaii, I actually have the address from where my family lived before they immigrated.
Wow,
I think
that's amazing.
even just walking, down that street and being able to see that will be such a life-changing experience and moment for me.
I love that. Well, I know, Emma, you've been growing up, you've been part of deep into your Okinawan roots, but Has there been mentors or inspirations in your journey, your Okinawan identity journey?
Yes, my greatest mentor is hands down my Koto sensei, Katsuko Teruya. She works out of the OAA and gives Koto lessons to community members. And we have like a group of about 4 really young people around my age who are still practicing and playing with her. But the majority of the group is, a more elderly folks who are still trying to keep the music alive. My Koto sensei really taught me the importance of honoring my ancestors and keeping in touch with our homeland and history through music. I've always been a musician. As some of you know, I'm a DJ. I'm also a classically trained violist, and I had played in orchestras for almost 10 years. So when I took up the koto, at first it was just like, oh, hey, this is another cool instrument that I can learn and add to my list. But it quickly became so much more than that, thanks to my sensei who told me how much weight playing that instrument really carried. When you play koto, it feels sort of like a ritual. You are dressed in proper kimono, you wear your hair up, you sit a certain way, and the music we play is all sung in uchi-naguchi and comes from traditional Okinawa folk music. So, sensei always reminds me that when I do play the koto, I'm keeping the songs of our ancestors alive. When so much of our culture, has been erased and lost, we have to hold on dearly to what we do have. I also brought a recording of myself and my sensei playing Kajadifu on koto, so that will be the opening or closing music, wherever we place that in this podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Have you been able to play, or are you still playing during the COVID and stuff?
I haven't been able to play as often anymore, just because of COVID. Unfortunately, we don't do virtual classes or anything like that. And since the OA has been closed, there hasn't been a space for us to meet. But, I still call my sensei a lot, and we just talk about what we're going to start playing, as well as eventually I will be moving to Northern California. So she's also connected me with some of the koto instructors up there so that I can continue that even beyond Southern California and the OAA.
Oh, that's so awesome. This is really tangent or random and kind of a tangent, but we should have like a Shimanchu podcast concert or something. Shimanchu
my gosh,
podcast
that is
Tiny Desk.
I love it.
Oh my gosh.
And then Emma, you can like host it or be our DJ
Joey
host
on the
person.
machine. Joey on the machine.
I really would like to see that happen because we have so many talented artists and musicians. Like, I know we want to bring in for a future podcast. This is like way next year but we would want to do like a musicians podcast, and there's so many amazing talented artists, and to be able to like feature you guys in like a mini concert would be amazing. But yeah, that is just like a random wish list, hopefully manifestation that we can do later on.
Yes. Let's do it.
I support it. Zoom.
Yes.
A Zoom talk, and then we'll have the concert.
Yeah, oh my god, that'd be so cool.
I was just gonna ask, out of curiosity, when did you start playing the koto? Like at around what age?
Oh man, I was, let me think. I should have been around 15 during my sophomore year of high school. It's funny how I started playing actually. I was supposed to do like a quartet type gig, and they ended up booting me out for someone much better. But my parents and my family had all the tickets to the concert already. So it was like a jazz orchestra concert. So we still ended up going because it was a collaboration with the Japanese American Hiroshima band. And the lead woman of the group actually plays koto. And when I had seen this from an audience perspective, what's interesting is I don't think I would have felt this way being there on stage, but being back, in the very back row and listening to just the sheer power of the koto like reverberating through the room. It literally struck me to my core. And I was like, I need to play this right now. And so I called my grandma up and was like, can you walk? She lives right next to the Okinawa Center. So I was like, can you walk over and ask Joey like if they offer classes or how can I do that? I want to play that. And sure enough, very lucky that they do have koto lessons there, but that's how I started and have stuck with it ever since. I think it is definitely it is my favorite instrument that I play because of that connection. I'm never going to be able to have such a strong connection to the instrument that I will with, anything else that I play.
How do we get to see you live? I want to be struck by the reverberating music sounds coming through the hall. Be like, Emma, we love you. Do you ever play like for an audience?
I mean, we would play. So I'm part of what's called the Koyokai Los Angeles group, and so we travel and play in different cities around LA. At least we did before the pandemic. So we'd play in Little Tokyo, we'd play in Montebello, and of course at the Okinawa Center for all the festivals and such. But I don't know. I will let you know when we have another show, because it's a very fun thing to watch.
Oh, I'm there. Post-COVID, I'm there. Shimanchu pride.
What's fun is during the shows we usually have dancers as well. So it's like a combination of the koto players in the front, sanshin in the back, and we have a nice taiko player as well on the side, and the whole front row is just purely for the traditional dancers to dance along with the music that we're playing. So it is awesome. Totally cross music, cross dance experience.
Wow.
That's so awesome.
We'll
definitely plug it once you guys have a concert again, because I want to see that in person. So I have no really good segue, but what advice might you have for other Shimanchu seeking to connect with their culture?
I would just say, go where your heart takes you. If you're drawn to linguistics, then look into Uchinaguchi classes with Brandon or Sherry. If you are a dancer or a musician, ask your local Kenjinkai how you can sign up for ASA or Sanshin studies. If you like cooking, look into Okinawan recipes. If you're into martial arts, go to your local karate dojo. And, even if you're just one of those people who's very cool and into tattoos, start exploring hajiki and brainstorm which patterns you'd like to wear someday. I think every person is unique and will naturally gravitate to a certain hobby within our culture. So just, find that pocket you're interested in and see how you can connect it to Okinawa.
Go to the Discord. If you're not sure which one, go to the Discord. You will find endless resources about what to be excited about.
That as well. I think if you are unsure, if you undecided on what path you'd want to take first, you can always join our Discord server, and we have more than enough resources for you to find your passion, and we will point you in the right direction of what you need.
Mariko, I think if I remember correctly, you said to stay curious, which I think is so very true, and to kind of follow through, to actually follow that curiosity and join the Discord to fulfill that curiosity. But I also have realized how important it is to share your own story, and it doesn't have to be like publicly facing or anything like that. But I think I found everyone's personal story is different. There might be like some overlap, but it's still so very unique to yourself. And for me personally, that has been my journey in terms of like how my family is connected to the larger Okinawan community, and how I see myself as part of this community. And I think before I always felt like my story or my voice didn't matter as much, but I've realized that's not the case. And I think it's just been fulfilling for myself to just be able to learn more about my family history and to continue to perpetuate the amazingness of our culture and stuff. So I think if you're still starting out in your journey, just to stay curious and to tell your story because it's important.
I think one of my favorite things watching your journey from the sidelines, Erica, has just been how you've been able to use your natural strengths in design and art to contribute to like the magazine through I remember you did an Instagram series where you were doing Uchinaguchi words and alongside visuals, and for me that was so powerful to see, like a very Instagram friendly and kind of cute representation of our culture. I don't know, I really admire that part of you and how you're able to channel your artistic strengths into promoting Okinawa.
Well, thanks so much, Emma. I'm very bad at taking compliments, but I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's been a really interesting journey for myself as well. Like I feel like I've never it's a weird like dynamic for me. Like I think it's like that perfectionist part of me, like that Western perfectionist thing I'm trying to let go of. But I feel like it's the first time that I've been really proud of something, putting it out there and acknowledging the work that I'm doing. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate it.
I also second that. I think like for me too, like the snail mail. I mean, I think I found, like you mentioned, sharing your own story. I think the first time I found you was from Nikki sharing your Yuta Hajiji post. I think it might have been like one of your very first illustrations, and it really stuck out with me, and I wanted to contact you.
Thank you for reaching out.
No problem. Thank you for responding. But yeah, no, I agree with what both of you have mentioned, telling your own story, and of course not being, or maybe not being, but to get the confidence, I guess, because I know it can be very scary to like reach out to people that either you want to connect with or that you want to share the space with. But yeah, no, you're like all the work that you've done for like those first illustrations to the Shimanchu pen pals to doing the magazine and also working on the podcast with us and being on the Discord.
Erica literally touched every corner.
I know.
So I think I'm overdoing it.
But it is funny how, you said you are really prioritizing sharing your own story, and I feel like you've helped enable, all of us to do so as well through the Pen Pal program. My pen pals personally, it's been interesting speaking with them. I have one Japanese American and then one Okinawan American that I'm in contact with, and the Okinawan American is, they had shared with me that they're not as interested in connecting like overly into the culture. They're just looking to make new friends, and for them the pen pal program is just a way to meet new people, not necessarily dive too deep into the different cultural aspects. And then on the other flip side, I have a JA that I speak to that is super interested in learning and building solidarity with Okinawans. And so, to hear them tell me their parts of the story and how they connect with Okinawan culture and then connect it to, my worldviews has been has very much been a learning experience for me as well, and a practice in sharing my own story. So thank you for that again.
Yeah, each of you have contributed so much to the community in different ways. And I'm really grateful to know all of you. I'm not really good with my words, so I apologize for that. But I'm so glad to have met all of you and Joey, who's not on this episode with us.
Yeah. I just can't wait to hug everyone in person.
I know. Oh my gosh.
The biggest.
I'm going to cry a lot, just to FYI, just a warning.
Oh, I love that.
But what about you, Mariko? Has your advice changed at all or anything from when you first started?
I think so. I mean, it's like I love the journey, right? And I think my advice now would be to try and connect with your ancestry, whatever that means for you, however that means for you, but just to try to connect with your ancestors. And yeah, that's kind of been playing out in my own life in terms of like following my lineage. And I've sort of ended up asking questions to like serendipitously the right people that were able to help nudge me along, and like resulted in finding like a family chart and having a different conversation with my mom that I didn't realize. And so like there was this like complete unfolding of, like I feel like I was at a roadblock for a lot of my journey about my Okinawan heritage, not really knowing. And then suddenly it was like somebody like pulled the pin, and all of a sudden the like waters are like flooding out. And I'm like, oh my God, all of this rich history. I had no idea. And I think that and so I had been giving prayers to my ancestors like all year, in a way that I hadn't been before. And I feel like those two things like combined is like just being like, even something as small as being like, I hear you, I see you, please like watch over me, please help me in whatever way is right, and I trust you, has been enormously helpful. So I'm not saying that that's what my advice would be to other people, but maybe just like finding your own personal way to connect with your ancestry, and to be proud of it, because like, again, I keep coming back to that resilience. I'm like, that's like what we are, right? We have that in our blood. We have that in like, it's core to the Shimanchu identity. And what better way to like kind of like follow that thread back and then honor the people that came before us. So I've been thinking a lot about that. And yeah, so I guess that would be my advice, is honor your history and your legacy in whatever way that is for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Anytime anyone wants to talk to anything spiritual or like, I'm totally down to have that convo. Get woo-woo. Not that it's woo-woo, but
I know we're wanting to do a spiritual episode later in next year sometime, but I'm like really, I don't need to be part of that conversation, but I'm really interested to hear that conversation, because I am not interested per se, but I know nothing about it. So I'm like really curious just to hear, from like the Brazilian community with, was it Bia? Bia? Yeah, she was on our kind of Instagram live for the Bon episode, and what she was saying was really powerful. And I would love to have a longer conversation with her about the aspect, because there's so little information in English, at least.
Right. Yeah, like the idea of, I mean, this is probably not the place for it, but I didn't realize that like 𝔼ℎ𝕬𝕐 was a thing. Like got like people, like sort of lay people, like the divine people walking among us. I don't know if you've heard the term 𝔼ℬ𝕬𝕐, but I guess that's a term that is fairly used in Brazil. Again, I can't speak to this with any authority, but my sort of digging has led in that direction. Anyway, I'm excited to explore more about it. And if you have any connections or ideas for all of you listeners out there, feel free to reach out to us with any suggestions about who to contact. Because I think that's the thing that's interesting about the diaspora, right? Is like we have these unique evolutions of what our culture is, and it's different than what it is in Okinawa Honto and like even the surrounding island. Like there's such diversity even within the islands, and then you have a diasporic community like Brazil versus the US, and even with the US, Hawaii versus like Los Angeles versus like a solo person out in Vermont, like it's all going to be totally different. But anyway, I could keep going. Tune in for the next episode sometime, 2022.
So much to look forward to.
And Tori, did you get a chance to say? I know you like echoed a little bit around. Yeah.
I think for me, my advice is still the same. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. And because I really think like for me, that has been such a big part of the community building, or some aspect of it, is that people were willing and wanting to connect, and because they did, we have the communities that we have now. So I feel like mine didn't really change. I guess a thing to add to the community aspect that I've been pushing recently a lot is please get in contact with any local to you Kenjinkai, because I think they really do have like the history and also the knowledge and the connections and a physical community space, which I think is also like a balance to having that digital space. They can also, sponsor you if you're trying to go to Okinawa.
To add on to what Tori's saying, I totally agree that building connections and reaching out to people is one of the easiest ways to get connected with your culture. I mean, I think about even just in a day-to-day scenario, if I tell someone who I know is Shimanchu that I'm also Shimanchu, it's like they will go out of their way to now help you because you are family and we are all family. I mean, Shimanchu literally just means island people. We're all island people at heart. I even went to a local record store recently and it was Japanese owned. So I was telling the owner like, oh, I'm actually Okinawan. And he goes, what? My wife's Okinawan. Like, I have so many great Okinawan records to show you. And he started giving me records for free because of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like,
oh my gosh.
Being Uchinanchu, has this definite sense of pride and love for everyone else who's a part of it. And it's cool to see that, spreading
the love.
I love it.
Ichariba Choodee.
Ichariba Choodee. Mm-hmm.
Once we meet, we are brothers and sisters. So, Emma, drum roll. What is your go-to karaoke song?
I didn't even have to think twice about this one. For me, it is More Than a Woman by the Bee Gees. I am a bona fide lover of all things disco, all things 70s. You can catch me singing the Bee Gees, Diana Ross, Sister Sledge, all those 70s hits at the karaoke bar. And once the pandemic is over, I want to throw a huge disco party and just dance the night away with everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds so fun.
I know. I need invites to both the Koto and then also the 70s party. I'm there. Can you make it happen on the same weekend?
Yes. We should. Back to back.
Okinawa
Oh my god.
I have like my DJ outfit under my kimono and
Yes.
Yes.
With your hair all up.
After party. It's the after party.
I love it. Oh, I'm so there.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Where can we direct folks looking to find out more information about what you do?
Yeah, so if you want links to, my social media, whether that's Twitter or Instagram, as well as to the Shimanchu Discord server, you can go to my card, which is 𝑒Anderson.card.co. That's 𝑒Anderson.card.co. That will have everything you need if you want to chat and connect. And of course, please, please, please join the server if you are not already a part of that family. We would love to have you.
Yay. We'll have all of that info in our show notes. Thank you again, Emma, for joining us. Until next time, matayasai.
Thank you for sticking with us till the end. This was so much fun to record since we had everyone together talking for the first time since episode 1 and finally getting to introduce you all to Emma. We can't wait for her to be able to join in and co-host on future episodes. I also still can't believe we're at the halfway point of season 1. As a listener, do you have any favorite episodes yet? We'd love to hear what they are. Drop us a line on Instagram at Shimanchu Podcast or send us an email at shimanchupodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to also suggest a topic via our submission form or leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Nihei debuted again to guest speaker and co-host Emma Anderson. You can find all of her info and socials at eAnderson.card.co. The beautiful intro and closing music was performed by Emma and our Koto teacher Katsuko Teruya of the Ryukyu Sokyoku Koyokai Los Angeles branch. You can find them on Facebook at LA Koyokai. Big shoutouts to Joseph, Kamiya, and Emma for their amazing audio editing skills. Thank you to those who have taken the time to rate us on Apple Podcast, and special thanks to Sherry who has donated to support the podcast on Ko-fi. If you'd also like to help support the podcast, donations via Ko-fi are much appreciated, and your generosity helps keep this podcast going. You can also continue to support the podcast by subscribing on our channels. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and we'll love it if you shared it with your friends and family. Thanks again, and see you next time. Mata yasai!
Thank you. That's so pretty.
You're welcome. Anyway, that's the piece. It's very important piece for Okinawan music ensemble. Any traditional music. Carry it, keep it alive. So I'm depending on you, Emma.
Hi, Thai everyone. Emma here. For this episode's Oki Fun Fact of the Day, I thought I would talk about the difference between the Okinawan Koto and the Japanese Koto. Even though they may look very similar, there are actually key differences between the two instruments. Before I go into further detail, let's briefly describe what a koto is. A koto is a 13-string horizontal zither that was introduced to Japan from China in the 8th century. And it wasn't until around the 17th century that the Ryukyu kingdom, present-day Okinawa, actually got a hold of this instrument. Now, what's cool is that the koto as an instrument is said to resemble a dragon. So pieces of the instrument are actually named after dragons. For example, the tail end of the koto is called the ryubi, the dragon tail. The top of the koto is called the ryuto, the dragon mouth or head. And the head piece itself is called the ryuzetsu, or dragon's tongue. And this naming convention applies to even more parts of the instrument, which I find quite fitting, considering Ryukyu itself is named after the Chinese description for glazed horn dragon. But now onto our main fact. What exactly differentiates a Japanese koto from an Okinawan one? Well, to start, it is the name. In Okinawa, the koto is actually called the kutu, and the major difference aside from name is the pitch of the instrument. In classical Japanese music, the koto is tuned to a higher key, while the Okinawan kutu is tuned lower and produces a deeper sound. My very own cousin, Derek Fujio, who's a skilled musician and kutu player, shared with me that in Okinawan music there are actually 4 major tuning patterns that you'll see used. The first being honchoshi tuning, the second nigenage, the third nigensage, and the fourth shigenage. And the song you heard me play with my sensei, Kajati Fubushi, is performed in honchoshi tuning. Nihei debiru for staying to the end to catch the fun fact. I hope to see you again soon in the next podcast episode. Until then, mata yasai!